Yeah, I know it's a thin line, but you might have crossed it. So, in what was, I'm sure, something that always happens during the recent update, I guess, to the senators of the coronavirus pandemic, they held a meeting. They were informed on what was going on, the spread of the virus, where it came from, things of that nature. And apparently, a few senators walked away from that meeting, and before announcing to the public what was going on, they dumped millions and millions and millions of dollars in stocks because they knew that market was going down. And as you can see, the market is tanking quite terribly. Now, what's interesting about this is so far they've only caught 4 of these senators, but we have Richard Burr, who dumped somewhere around 1.7 million, Kelly Loeffler 3.1 million. And something interesting about Kelly Loeffler, we'll go into that later. Her husband is actually the CEO and chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. Anyways, Dianne Feinstein up to $1 million, and let's not forget her husband also, it's estimated $1 to $5 million, and James Inhofe. So it came out that these 4 senators, right, had dumped millions of dollars in stocks well before the public was correctly informed about the coronavirus pandemic. And even worse than that, Richard Burr, this guy, you have this guy who goes in front of people in the public and says, it's bad, but it's not that bad, and then sells all of his shares of stock. How corrupt, how terrible and despicable of a human being can you be? Anyways, so let's start with them one by one. We got Dianne Feinstein, right, who simply just issued a statement and said, her investments are done in a blind trust, and she doesn't know what happens in there, and that's it. Put that to bed, right? Second, we have Kelly Loeffler, and she was so desperate to get on the news and clear the air. I don't know if that's a signal towards her innocence or her culpability, but she went on the air and she did an interview. And in this interview, the interviewer asked, hey, don't you think that, it's a little suspicious that you happen to sell all your stocks right before this coronavirus pandemic information came out after a meeting that you attended? Don't you, did you have any insider information? Did you? She's like, thank you for asking. Thank you so much. Let me clear the air. As a normal person would do. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me clear the air.
Were you trading on inside information about what was coming?
Well, I'm really glad you asked, Ed, because I do want to set the record straight. I've seen some of those stories, and it's absolutely false, and it could not be true. So if you actually look at the personal transaction reports that were filed, it notices at the bottom that I'm only informed of my transactions after they occur, several weeks. So certainly those transactions, at least on my behalf, were a mix of buys and sells, very routine for my portfolio.
Okay.
And
he's like, okay. So you have other people making investments for you. That's great. Yeah. No, that's fine. So who are these other people, right? If you don't know what's happening and what they're doing with your money, obviously you trust them a lot. He said, who is this third party? Who is this third party that does these stock exchanges for you and that you don't know about? Huh? Who is it?
I mentioned the sales before stocks went down. They also purchased your third-party advisors, Sitnix, as I understand, which is a teleconferencing company. With workers displaced now, given the crisis, teleconferencing companies are doing quite well. Who are these third-party advisors? They seem to have a pretty good idea about where the market was headed.
Well, certainly I'm not involved in the decisions around buying and selling. There's a range of different decisions made every day with regard to my savings and 401k portfolios that I'm not involved in. And certainly, like any other trade, you can't see into the future.
So she doesn't answer, of course, right? She didn't actually answer the question. She's like, look. I don't know what they do. I don't know. They do what's best. I don't know what they do. I don't. Well, that's really interesting because you had information that was privy only to a certain group of people, and it just so happened that your third-party investors were also privy to that same exact information. I think that's a little suspicious, don't you? So anyways, then we have James Inhofe, and James Inhofe was smart about it. Well, I don't know if it's smart or not, but he basically said, you know what, I'm not going to comment at this time. I'm not going to comment on it. And chances are that they'll have an investigation, but what have we learned from the last 3 years of the Trump administration? Oh, that investigations turn up nothing. Absolutely nothing, and most of the time they violate some kind of law while they're in the process of it. But there are I think 1, 2, 3. So 3 of these are Republicans. So if they do an investigation, they're going to be in kind of trouble, because Democrats, when they do investigations, they turn the world upside down, try to find what they can. But if we investigate a Democrat, so help us, we find something on them. Oh my goodness, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So then we get to Richard Burr, right? Richard Burr. So Richard Burr was part of this. He was updated on the coronavirus, right? He was updated on it, the pandemic, where it originated, and the gravity and severity of the situation that would hit the United States, right? This was a couple months ago. And so what did he do? Richard Burr, he went in front of constituents or whoever, people, and it was like, look, guys, okay, here's what's happening. Yeah, there's a virus, kind of, not that much worse than the normal flu, coming out of China, as everything does. Don't worry about it too much. And then he goes, he leaves the meeting, right? He gets off stage, he leaves the meeting, and the first thing he does is he goes to his phone, millions sold, millions, right? Oh my gosh. You've got to be kidding me. If they do have an investigation, this guy is in serious trouble, man. I hope his transaction history checks out for his sake, right? You have to have some kind of cojones to go in front of this group of people and tell, hey, it's not that big of a deal, like everything's going to be okay, and then, boom, sell everything you can. Not as bad as Kelly Loeffler, though. I mean, that woman, she sold everything she had, and then they invested, right? Oh, she didn't know about this, though. She invested in telecommunications companies. You've got to be kidding me. Like, it's almost too good to be true. Like, how could anybody be that dumb? And I'm sure they're not the only ones, but I'm sure a lot of other people, more experienced, been around the block, and they know how to shelter that stuff and hide it so it's not so apparent. And don't get me wrong, right? There's a thin line of when the public knew and had all the details versus when these senators knew. And the thin line right in between there somewhere maybe is when they sold their stocks. Now, I don't have a problem with them selling their stocks if it was after a public announcement, right? I don't have a problem with that. Richard Burr a little bit because he downplayed it, but I don't have a problem with that at all. What I do have a problem with is if they sold their stocks before the public was correctly informed of the pandemic that we were facing, right? That is insider trading at its finest. In a different capacity, granted, but that's insider trading, and that should definitely be punishable. Martha Stewart, she got jail time, right? And we got senators, people who help pass laws, right, that are disobeying laws, supposedly. I don't know. I haven't done an investigation, but that's the only, I would have a problem with that. Now, look at me, for example. Like, I see the things that are happening, and, I don't want to take advantage of people, but I see that the market has tanked in certain sectors, like airlines and cruise lines and, travel, and, I'm like, okay, what would be a good investment opportunity? But I'm not over here like, hey, I got some insider information I'm about to sell before this market falls out, son. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's so unethical and illegal. So hopefully it comes out that all their transactions were legit, and I was a little disappointed because it's a combination of Republicans and Democrats. But hopefully it comes out that their transactions were in a good time period after the public announcement, and that they didn't trade on insider information. And I guess we'll see what happens from there, and I'm sure somebody else is going to come out and get caught. So anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think. Do you think that this is insider trading? Like, do you think this is insider information that they traded on and profited on the downturn of the market? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, those are my thoughts exactly. Thanks for watching. Bye. How could anybody be that dumb?